In the previous life, my sister-in-law firmly believed that only by relentlessly pushing a child could he achieve success. However, my nephew was a premature baby, and both his intelligence and physical condition were inferior to those of normal children. As a childcare professional, I adopted individualized teaching methods. After my nephew graduated from junior high school, I recommended that he attend a technical school to study cooking. After my nephew completed his studies and returned, he opened a small restaurant, and his life was thriving. He confessed his love to the girl he liked. The girl looked at him with disdain. "You a lowly cook chasing me? You're like a toad lusting after a swan." My sister-in-law said resentfully, "It's all your aunt who ruined your future. She didn't let you do the joie ceremony on your first birthday, and as soon as you graduated from junior high school, she forced you to learn cooking. If you had listened to mom and got into a prestigious university, you could have found any girlfriend you wanted." My nephew hated me because of this. Once when he was drunk, he pushed me into the back kitchen of the restaurant, locked the door, and set it on fire. I was blown up so that not even a corpse could be found. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of my nephew's first birthday party. My sister-in-law asked me whether we should hold a joie ceremony for Xiaobao. I said, "You're the child's mother. You can decide. Yun, do you think we should hold a joie ceremony for Xiaobao? After all, it's best to start pushing a child early and cultivate a learning mindset from an early age." A familiar voice came from beside my ear. In my sight was my sister-in-law Li Mei's big face, holding a thin and small baby boy in her arms. I looked around blankly. There were a room full of people. I had actually been reborn. I remembered that in the previous life, she had also asked me like this. At that time, I said that actually the joie ceremony wasn't very scientific. Most babies who had just turned 1 year old couldn't distinguish the quality of things well yet, and their movements weren't very agile either. When grabbing things, they mostly grabbed what was nearby. Mainly, my nephew was too weak in body and wasn't suitable for such a hassle. After hearing my words, Li Mei's face obviously darkened, but she didn't say anything in the end. Later, on my advice, my nephew studied cooking after graduating from junior high school. After he graduated, I provided the money for him to open a small restaurant. My nephew was good at cooking, so the restaurant business was booming. When my nephew summoned up the courage to confess his love to the girl he liked, that girl looked at him with disdain. "A stinky cook still wants to chase me? You're really like a toad trying to eat swan meat." My nephew was disheartened. My sister-in-law said resentfully, "It's all your aunt who ruined your future. She didn't let you do the joie ceremony on your first birthday. As soon as you graduated from junior high school, she forced you to learn cooking. If you had listened to mom and got into a prestigious university, you could have found any girlfriend you wanted." My nephew hated me because of this. One day, when he was drunk, he was so irritable that he smashed things in the back kitchen and ignited the gas tank. I rushed in to pull him out, but unexpectedly, he pushed me in instead and locked the back kitchen door tightly. With a loud bang, I was buried in the sea of fire. My brother and sister-in-law panicked and removed all the surveillance cameras in the restaurant and deleted the content. When relatives came to offer condolences, my father cried and said, "Yun was too narrow-minded. Because Xiaowei was close to his parents, she was uncomfortable. She turned on the gas and committed suicide, even blowing up the restaurant." But after all the relatives left, he knelt alone in front of my grave. "Yun, Dad is sorry for you. But our Su family has had only one son in each of the past 3 generations. I can't let the Su family's line end with Xiaowei." It turned out that my father had also gone to the small restaurant that day. He saw everything. My soul was floating in mid-air. Clearly a soul didn't need to breathe, but I felt extremely suffocated. These were the family members I had treated wholeheartedly. I withdrew my thoughts and met Li Mei's gaze, smiling faintly. "Sister-in-law, you're Xiaowei's mother. You can decide." Hearing this, a proud smile immediately bloomed on Li Mei's face. She eagerly told my brother Su Cheng to make arrangements for the things needed for the joie ceremony. Li Mei placed Xiaowei, who had taken a bath and put on new clothes, in the middle. The little guy, who was already in poor spirits, was then surrounded by so many people. He immediately burst into loud wails. How could he care about grabbing things? Li Mei felt embarrassed and slapped the little guy on the back of his hand. Pointing at the book nearest to him, she said, "Baby, go grab the book. In the future, we'll become the top scorer in the imperial examinations and get into Tsinghua University." But the little guy cried even louder and only burrowed into his mother's arms. He didn't grab anything. The relatives started whispering, and upon closer listening, there were even mocking laughs. Now Li Mei couldn't sit still any longer. She picked up a book and stuffed it into the little guy's hand, saying as she did so, "Look, the baby won't let go of the book. He loves learning from a young age. On the night after the first birthday party, my nephew had a high fever and was hospitalized. My brother said to Li Meili with a cold face, "Look at what you've done. Xiaowei is so young and you had to hassle him. Now he's sick. Are you happy?" Li Meili knew she was in the wrong, but still refused to admit defeat verbally. "Don't push everything onto me. Didn't you agree at that time?" Furthermore, establishing a love for reading awareness in children from an early age is not wrong at all. The two of them started arguing, each having their say, until the nurse came out and told them to take the argument home. And then they stopped. In the blink of an eye, my nephew turned 3 years old. One day, I received a call from my father. He said on the phone, "Yunyan, come home for dinner tonight. Your brother and sister-in-law have prepared a lot of dishes." After having a sumptuous meal and drinking to their heart's content, my father spoke up. "Yunyan, Xiaowei is about to start kindergarten soon. Your brother and sister-in-law want Xiaowei to try enrolling in the Red Star bilingual kindergarten in the city." It was the same scenario as before. I said, "The public kindergarten at the entrance of our community is very good. It's convenient for picking up and dropping off. And since it's close to home, usually our father is responsible for picking up and dropping off the child. It only takes 5 minutes to walk there. And Li Meili has also returned to work and has been promoted all the way. However, on the day my nephew killed me, she said to me resentfully, 'It's all because you didn't let me go to a good school. If I had listened to my mother, I would have been admitted to a prestigious university long ago.'" Thinking of this, I turned to my father and said, "Both my brother and sister-in-law are college educated. They know how to educate a child. The choices they make must be the best for the child. You don't need to worry." Hearing me say this, my brother and sister-in-law had smiles on their faces. Li Meili was beaming with pride. But the bilingual kindergarten we've chosen arranges foreign teachers to communicate with the children. In this way, our Xiaowei can speak pure English from an early age. My brother supported her, saying, "The school is good, but the tuition fee is a bit expensive. Yunyan, could you contribute some tuition for your nephew? When I have money, I'll pay you back." My father immediately said, "We're all family. What's the talk of paying back? You're helping Xiaowei now, and when he grows up, he'll remember your kindness. When you're old, you'll still rely on Xiaowei." In the previous life, under the guise of such family affection, I took out most of my savings to support my nephew. Until I was 35 years old, I still couldn't buy my own house, and had to stay in a 6-square-meter utility room at home all day. Actually, I originally had a bedroom, but Li Meili said that she wanted to create a special study area for Xiaowei. So my spacious and bright bedroom became the place where Xiaowei's desk was placed. In this life, I won't be so foolish anymore. Everyone should shoulder their own responsibilities. Unhurriedly, I took out the bright red property ownership certificate from my bag. I also want to help Xiaowei, but I just bought a house and don't have a penny left in my hand. Bought a house? The three of them almost popped their eyes out. I looked at them with satisfaction, seeing the astonishment in their eyes. My father still didn't give up and accused me in an unhappy tone. "Such a big matter, and you didn't even discuss it with the family. Why don't you sell the house and move back home? It's so much more convenient." I secretly sneered in my heart. How could I be so foolish as to not live in a spacious and bright big house, but instead go back to live in a small utility room? "The big house was just bought and can't be sold," I said Nambanda. Li Meili frowned, her face gloomy. "Dad, don't beg her. I, Sucheng, will sell everything I have to send Xiaowei to that school. I definitely can't let him lose at the starting line." Well, I'll just wait and see what wonders can come out of it. The school was too far from home, and there was only one car in the family. My brother needed to drive it for his business trips outside. At first, they asked my father to pick up and drop off Xiaowei by electric bike. Once, in order to rush, my father ran a red light and was hit by a car. Fortunately, nothing serious happened. My brother and Li Meili didn't dare to let my father pick up and drop off Xiaowei anymore. The family discussed back and forth, and decided that Li Meili should quit her job to take care of the child full-time. And my father, who was over 60 years old, needed to take on odd jobs everywhere to subsidize the family, because relying only on my brother's salary was simply not enough to cover all the family's expenses. When the weather was good, it was okay, but when it rained, snowed, or in the cold winter, the child really suffered. The result was that Xiaowei was sick and hospitalized every now and then, and being sick and hospitalized required even more money. As the saying goes, poverty makes a couple unhappy in everything. My brother pointed at Li Meili's nose and said, "Tell me, what can you do? You can't even take care of a child properly." Li Meili retorted worriedly. "Isn't it all because you're incapable and have no money? If you had money to buy me a car, the child wouldn't have to suffer." Money, money, money. Do you think it's easy for me to earn money? I'm exhausted every day. My salary is just enough to cover Xiaowei's expenses for 1 year. Since Xiaowei started going to the bilingual kindergarten, Li Meili especially liked to take Xiaowei to play with the mothers in the community. "Baby, tell mom, how do you say apple in English?" "Apple. This little one is so amazing. He can speak English at such a young age." There was a chorus of envy from the surrounding mothers. Of course, my baby goes to a bilingual kindergarten. The teachers are all native foreigners. A child's education should start from an early age. Li Meili's vanity was greatly satisfied, but after almost 3 years, Xiaowei could only say a few simple English words for fruits, colors, and numbers. However, Li Meili thought it was well worth it, and often posted on moments My baby is so amazing. He can say so many English words. Mom is so proud of you. No matter how poor we are, we can't skimp on education. No matter how hard it is, we can't let the child suffer. A child's education should start from an early age. At first, everyone would like and comment, but later, everyone got a bit annoyed. One mother directly commented, "My baby could say these words before he was 3 years old. I just taught him casually at home, and he learned them." Li Meili was unhappy and directly blocked this mother, muttering, "She's just jealous that our Xiaowei is so amazing." I just watched from the side and didn't say anything. To my surprise, my father brought my brother's sister-in-law and Xiaowei to my new home to find me. I immediately felt that something big was wrong. Sure enough, my father cleared his throat and spoke. "Yunyun, the primary school corresponding to your house is Xinguang Primary School, which is the best primary school in this area." At this point he looked up at me. Seeing that I didn't react much, he continued, "Why don't you transfer the ownership of the house to your brother's name first and transfer Xiaowei's household registration here? Then he can go to Xinguang Primary School." My brother also quickly chimed in. "Yunyun, it's not that we want your house. After Xiaowei finishes primary school, I'll transfer the house back to you." I closed my eyes and suppressed the bitterness in my heart, saying word by word, "Dad, brother, have you ever thought that I'm almost 30 years old? I also want to get married and have children. In the future, my children will also need to go to school." Suddenly, the air around seemed to freeze, and it was extremely quiet. Apparently, they hadn't thought about this problem. In the previous life, I had also had 2 relationships. Every time when it came to the stage of discussing marriage, the man would hesitate and say it wasn't suitable. After my persistent questioning, the other party euphemistically said that my burden was too heavy, and there might be some unnecessary conflicts after marriage. Yes, who would want to marry someone with such a heavy burden? Pulling back my thoughts, I raised the corners of my lips. Just right. Since the whole family is here today, I want to announce a good news. I'm getting married. What? The whole family was astonished. Li Meili was the quickest to react. "Yunyun, when you get married, it should be your husband who buys the house." My father also came to his senses. Yes, when getting married, how can a woman buy a house herself? It'll make people laugh. People who don't know will think you're eager to get married. From beginning to end, they didn't care who I was marrying. They only cared about my house. My boyfriend also has a house, but the school district of his house is not as good as mine, I said leisurely. I walked over and took Li Meili's hand to comfort her. "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Primary school knowledge is simple. Xiaowei has also attended a bilingual kindergarten, so he has an earlier start than other children. Therefore, even if he goes to an ordinary primary school, he will still be outstanding." These words made Li Meili's face soften a lot, and the corners of her mouth turned up. That's right. When other children were still playing with mud, my baby could already speak English. Even if he goes to an ordinary primary school, his grades will definitely be at the top. My brother also echoed, "A gem will shine wherever it is." I secretly sneered in my heart. One shouldn't speak too rashly. Soon the first grade first semester test arrived. Li Meili confidently messaged the child's head teacher to ask about Xiaowei's grades. Soon, the other party sent back the results. Chinese 70, Math 66, and class rank 45th out of 50. Li Meili was stunned and took a long time to come to her senses. "Impossible. Teacher, did you make a mistake? My Xiaowei is very smart." Suwei's mother, "The grades are correct. Classmate Suwei always can't concentrate in class. Although his eyes are looking at the blackboard, his mind is not there at all. He also often dozes off. Adequate sleep time must be ensured." Li Meili was like a deflated balloon as she hung up the phone. It turned out that she had signed Xiaowei up for many cram schools, including an Olympiad math class, an oral English class, a reading class, and a programming class. After these classes, when he got home, he still had to complete the relevant homework and the homework assigned by the school. By the time he finished, it was almost 11 o'clock. At 6 o'clock in the morning, she woke the child up again to recite ancient poems in English. Xiaowei always looked exhausted, and was even less willing to communicate with others. He didn't have the innocence and liveliness of children of the same age at all. It was really pitiful to see. Even my brother couldn't stand it anymore. "Look at how tired Xiaowei is. This won't work. Sign him up for 2 fewer classes." As soon as Li Meili heard this, she was unhappy. "What do you know? Only those who endure hardship can become successful. Do you want your son to grow up to be as useless as you?" My brother flew into a rage and pointed at her nose, cursing. "You think you're so capable? I don't see how good Xiaowei's grades are. My colleague Xiaoli's child is also in the 1st grade. He didn't attend any training classes, and he got a double 100 in this exam." Li Meili fell silent. Just when everyone thought she had listened, the next day, Li Meili signed Xiaowei up for one-on-one Chinese and one-on-one math classes. One has to say that Li Meili's way of thinking was really quite novel. Just as the sky was beginning to brighten, my brother suddenly called. On the phone, he was actually crying. "Yunyun, come to the hospital quickly. Your sister-in-law might be dying." I was completely confused. Just as I was about to ask what was going on, the other end hung up the phone. I rushed to the hospital in a hurry. After seeing my brother at a loss, I finally understood what had happened. Xiaowei secretly went downstairs to play with the children on the weekend, when Li Meili was not at home. After attending cram classes for most of the day, and then playing in the afternoon, by 8 o'clock in the evening, he was so tired and sleepy that he couldn't keep his eyes open and fell asleep. As a result, he didn't finish his weekend homework. When he went to school on Monday, The teacher punished him to copy it 10 times. When the child got home at night, it was already 12 o'clock by the time he finished his homework. Thinking that he had to get up early the next day, Li Meili let Xiaowei go to bed. At 4 o'clock in the morning, she woke the child up again to do homework. Because he had been thinking about not doing his homework all day, he didn't learn the new lessons taught by the teacher very well. He couldn't do many questions. Li Meili explained one question 3 times, but Xiaowei still couldn't understand. Finally, Li Meili broke down. She roared at Xiaowei hysterically. "Are you a pig? Why are you so stupid?" Xiaowei had never seen his mother like this before, and was so scared that he burst into tears. Seeing Xiaowei crying, Li Meili became even more furious. She tore up all the books, cut up the school bag with scissors and shouted, "Don't study anymore. You're so stupid. What's the point of studying?" Then she kept slapping herself in the face and screaming hysterically. "Why did I give birth to such a stupid son? Why? Why?" My brother was woken up. Full of anger and without asking what was going on, he shouted at Li Meili. "Are you crazy? It's only 4 o'clock and you woke me up. Do I still need to go to work tomorrow?" Li Meili looked at my brother with a heart as cold as death. Suddenly, she fell to the ground with a thud. My brother was so frightened that he immediately called 120. At the hospital, after the rescue, the doctor said it was a brain stem hemorrhage, and the situation was very critical. A critical illness notice had been issued. She was still being rescued. My brother hugged his head and cried bitterly, constantly blaming himself. "It's all my fault. I didn't understand her," and kept complaining that she couldn't take care of the child. "If she can pull through this time, I'll accept that the child is an ordinary person. We're all ordinary people, and there's nothing wrong with that." As my brother kept babbling on, my heart was filled with a complex mix of emotions. In one's life, the hardest thing to accept is perhaps that one's own child is mediocre. Who is the patient's family member? Suddenly, the door of the emergency room opened, and a doctor came out and shouted at us. I am. My brother quickly stood up. Fortunately, she was sent to the hospital in time, and the amount of bleeding wasn't very large. Now the patient has been out of danger. In the future, be sure to pay attention and don't let her have such big emotional swings. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you," my brother said excitedly. Li Meili was lying on the hospital bed, with a ventilator in her mouth, her face pale and her eyes tightly closed. She looked pitiful and tragic. "Yunyan, your sister-in-law is hospitalized, and I need to take care of her. Our father still has to work. During this period, could you take Xiaowei to your place and take care of him for a while?" In the previous life, not only did I spend most of my money on my nephew, but also when my brother and sister-in-law had no time to take care of him, I was the one taking care of him. I picked him up and dropped him off at school, tutored him in his studies, took him to eat delicious food, drink nice drinks and play fun games on weekends, and bought him clothes, shoes, and toys. But so what? Didn't I just raise an ungrateful wretch? I twitched the corners of my mouth. "Brother, I've never taken care of a child before. I'm worried I won't do a good job. How about this? Whenever I have time, I'll come over to take care of sister-in-law. It's better for you as his parents, to take care of the child personally." There was a hint of displeasure on my brother's face, and his voice was cold. "Yunyan, we're all family. Given such a big thing has happened in the family, if you neither contribute money nor effort, isn't that a bit heartless?" I secretly sneered in my heart. So now they consider me as part of the family again? "Brother, I really want to contribute to the family, but I'm currently preparing for my wedding, and there are many expenses. After paying the mortgage with my meager salary each month, there's not much left. Do as you like." With these words, he left angrily, slamming the door behind him. Half a month later, Li Meili was discharged from the hospital. Unexpectedly, the first thing she did was to go to the school and make a scene. Li Meili pointed at the teacher's nose and cursed. What a vicious teacher, punishing the student to write the homework 10 times. He couldn't finish it even in the middle of the night. "You almost cheating me. If you don't give me an explanation today, this isn't over." She sat on the ground, her hair disheveled, kicking her legs straight, fully displaying the act of making a scene. The teacher was a young girl who had just graduated. She had never seen such a scene before. She was trembling all over, with tears in her eyes. Soon, the principal came and courteously invited her to the principal's office. Regarding this matter, the teacher's approach was indeed a bit inappropriate, but her starting point was good. "I apologize to you on her behalf. If you have any requests, feel free to say them. We'll do our best to meet them if we can." Hearing this, Li Meili's eyes rolled around. "I'm a reasonable person. I just hope the school can transfer Su Wei to the experimental class." The principal furrowed his brows, looking Wei Nan. Su Wei's mother. The children in the experimental class were all admitted based on their grades at the beginning. It's really not possible to transfer him in now. Li Meili said softly. "I'll call the education bureau now, and ask if they'll take care of the matter of a teacher deliberately punishing a student." Su Wei's mother, "We can sit down and discuss this properly." The result of the discussion was that Su Wei's student status remained in the original class, but he could attend classes in the experimental class as an auditor. Li Meili immediately felt elated and said to Su Wei, "In the future, you can only associate with the classmates in the experimental class. Don't play with those classmates in your original class. Their grades are not good, and they'll have a bad influence on you." However, since Li Meili made a big scene at the school, both she and her son became well known in the school. The classmates in the experimental class basically ignored him. Xiaowei, who was originally introverted, became even more withdrawn. In the first exam in the experimental class, Xiaowei, without a doubt, came last. Li Meili couldn't save face, and made a scene at the school again, accusing the teacher in the experimental class of discriminating against her son, and not teaching him well. This time the principal was also angry. With a cold face he said, "I can understand your eagerness for your son to succeed, but I can assure you that our teachers treat all students equally." "You're talking nonsense. If they treat all students equally, how could my son come last? I've signed him up for so many cram schools." Li Meili glared with her eyes wide open, one hand on her hip, and the other pointing at the principal's nose. The principal, who was over 50 years old, was so angry that he seemed to be on the verge of passing out, covering his chest with both hands. The dean beside him quickly asked 2 security guards to escort Li Meili out. Li Meili returned home angrily. "This lousy school. The teacher's teaching level is no good. We're not going to this school anymore." My brother frowned and looked at her. "Not going? Then where are you going to send him? Stop making a fuss, okay?" Li Meili's face became even uglier. She shouted at my brother. "Am I making a fuss? Who am I doing this for? Have you ever taken care of this child since he was born? Let it be. Let him learn whatever he can. Learning requires talent." My brother tried his best to calm his emotions. "No, I can't accept that my child is a poor student." Li Meili shouted hysterically. Seeing that my brother and she were on the same side, Li Meili turned her head and looked at me, who was silently smoking Yipong. "Dad, can you accept that in the future, Xiaowei will be like you, taking odd jobs everywhere, and becoming part of the social bottom?" My father extinguished the cigarette, grinding it hard in the ashtray, and then looked up at me. "Yunyan, you have the highest education in our family, and know the most people. You must help your nephew well. In the future, when he makes it big, he won't forget you, his aunt." I secretly sneered in my heart. If I hadn't experienced the previous life, I might really believe this. "Dad, how do you want me to help? I'm just a childcare expert. Most of my colleagues and friends are also in this line of work. I really don't know any principals," I said somewhat helplessly. "Yunyan, I have a classmate who is the principal of a private school. I've inquired. Xiaowei can transfer there, but he needs to pay a 200,000 yuan school selection fee. Yunyan, Xiaowei is your own nephew. You can't just ignore him." Li Meili said GCLY. I let out a breath looking Weinan. "Sister-in-law, I only have that much salary each month. After paying the mortgage, what's left is just enough for living expenses." Li Meili still didn't give up. "When you got married, your husband should have given you the betrothal gift, right?" She paused, glanced at me and continued. "According to tradition, this betrothal gift should be given to the bride's family. After all, it's not easy for the bride's family to raise you." Looking at her full of anticipation, I crushed her hopes word by word. He didn't give me a single cent of the betrothal gift. After saying this, I keenly caught a flash of hatred in her eyes. But I never expected that she would act so unscrupulously. Since it was the weekend, my husband and I slept until 10 o'clock in the morning, and then leisurely went downstairs to find something to eat. From afar, we saw several elderly ladies in the community holding signs, and an elderly man was beating a drum vigorously. There were crowds of onlookers. I excitedly pulled my husband over. As a result, when I took a look, I almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The signs read 0 betrothal gift, living in the wife's house, spending the wife's money, shamelessly sponging off, and building 18, unit 302. My husband and I looked at each other in dismay. We never expected to be the ones being gossiped about. Looking at my wronged husband, I cleared my throat. "Dear neighbors, I'm the owner of unit 302. Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to me in unison. I didn't want to talk about my family affairs in public, but I couldn't let my husband be wronged. Although my husband didn't give me the betrothal gift, he handed over all his salary to me after marriage. He also bought a house in full before marriage, which is currently being rented out, and the monthly rent is also given to me. We live here because it's close to where we work." A neighbor raised a question. "According to what you said, your husband seems quite reliable. Then why would someone deliberately ruin your reputation?" I smiled. "Everyone, listen to these 2 voice recordings and you'll understand everything." As I spoke, I took out my phone and played the recordings of my father and brother asking me to transfer and sell the house. After playing, I continued to play the recording of Li Meili asking me to take out the betrothal gift. After listening, everyone started talking. "What kind of bride's family is this? They're simply bloodsuckers." Fortunately, the girl has a clear mind. "Girl, you should stay away from such a family as soon as possible." I don't know which kind-hearted neighbor called the security guards. The security guards drove out the elderly ladies holding signs, and the elderly man beating the drum. Thus a farce was resolved. Since someone couldn't wait to make a move, reciprocity demands that I can't just do nothing. The Mid-Autumn Festival arrived. I took my husband to visit my father. Poor Xiaowei was on vacation, but couldn't have a good time. Li Meili found several sets of test papers for him from somewhere. "Yunyan, help me keep an eye on Xiaowei while he does the test papers. Don't let him get distracted." I readily agreed. Feeling a bit bored, I casually took out a newly bought game console from my bag. I leisurely nestled on the sofa and played games. Xiaowei would glance at me from time to time. When I looked at him, he would quickly lower his head and pretend to do his homework. I twitched the corners of my mouth. "Do you want to play?" He shook his head. "No, I don't. My mom said only bad kids play games. I want to study hard and get into a prestigious university in the future." I gave him a thumbs up. "Xiaowei, you're so good. Study hard then." When I left, I accidentally left the game console on the sofa. When I went back to look for it, it was gone. Glancing at Xiaowei, whose face was flushed, I muttered to myself, how strange. I clearly remember leaving it here. Why can't I find it? Maybe it's somewhere else. I'll go look again. Walking out of the room, a cold smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. In this lifetime, not only will I keep my distance from this family, but I won't let the tragic death in my previous life go unavenged. The kind-hearted and soft-hearted me has long been buried in the flames. Now, I adhere to the principle of repaying kindness and taking revenge for grudges. I don't believe a 14 or 15-year-old child can resist the temptation of games. I'm looking forward to what wonderful things will happen next. In the blink of an eye, Xiaowei was in his third year of junior high school. Li Meili was even stricter with him. He hardly ever went to bed before 12 o'clock at night, and had to get up at 5:30 the next morning. All day long, it was either classes or doing test questions. Xiaowei, this is the most crucial year. You have to rank at least in the top 20 of the whole grade, to have a chance to get into the #1 middle school in the city. If you don't, I'll break your legs. Xiaowei, with lifeless eyes, nodded wearily. One day at 3 a.m., Li Meili got up to use the toilet. On a whim, she wanted to check if her precious son had kicked off the quilt. Gently pushing open the door, she saw a glow under the covers. Li Meili's heart skipped a beat. She strode forward and yanked the quilt away. Both of them looked at each other in horror. Then, a shrill female scream pierced the silent night sky. This time, Li Meili came up with an unconventional idea. Early the next morning, she asked the head teacher for 2 days leave for Xiaowei. Holding a stick in her hand, she sat by Xiaowei's bedside. Have a good play. Play hard. Don't doze off. If you close your eyes, I'll hit you. The timid and weak-willed Xiaowei was tormented for a day and 2 nights. Finally, he fainted from exhaustion. Only then did Li Meili rush the child to the hospital in a flurry. In the hospital, Li Meili's anger still hadn't subsided. She repeatedly grilled Xiaowei about where the game console came from. Xiaowei ignored her and pretended to sleep with his eyes closed. This act directly enraged Li Meili. She yanked the quilt off the bed again. I'll let you sleep. You won't sleep until you tell me clearly. Xiaowei sat up in pain, his eyes blood red, and roared at his mother. Are you crazy? I picked up the game console. Can you just stop for a while? Li Meili was stunned. She never expected her son, whom she had wholeheartedly cared for, to call her crazy. At this moment, her heart was pierced like by a knife. She silently walked out of the ward, completely unaware of a resentful gaze falling on her from behind. The seeds of hatred had taken root and germinated. Sooner or later, they would break through the ground and grow into towering trees. After the game console incident, the midterm exam of the 3rd year of junior high school soon arrived. Li Meili received a call from the head teacher and rushed to the school in a hurry. It turned out that Xiaowei had cheated in the exam and was caught red-handed by the invigilator. As a mother, you should really discipline this child well. He's listless in class every day and doesn't do his homework. If this goes on, there's basically no hope for him to get into high school. The head teacher shook his head. Li Meili was instantly filled with rage. She came in front of Xiaowei, who was standing in the corridor. Without saying a word, she slapped Xiaowei twice in the face. Perhaps she used too much force. Xiaowei's face was slapped to one side. He mechanically turned his head back little by little, pushed his swollen cheek with his tongue, and had a gloomy and terrifying smile on his face. Then with lightning speed, he took out a switchblade from his pocket and stabbed Li Meili, pulling out the knife and stabbing again over and over. Let you control me again. Let you control me again. Die, you bitch. Warm blood splashed all over his body and face. Li Meili didn't say a word from beginning to end. She just kept staring fixedly at her precious son, with a look of complete bewilderment. The surrounding students were stunned by this scene. The teachers who rushed over upon hearing the news were also too shocked to speak. Realizing that he had caused a huge disaster, Xiaowei dropped the knife, quickly grabbed the railing and jumped down. There was a chorus of screams all around. Soon, the sirens of ambulances and police cars were heard. Li Meili eventually died due to severe injuries and ineffective rescue. The floor where Xiaowei was at that time was the 3rd floor. He didn't die from the fall, but had fractures all over his body. When my father and my brother heard the news, their eyes went black and they both fainted. After waking up, instead of going to the hospital first, they rushed to the school. They gathered a group of relatives, pulled a banner at the school gate, burned paper money, and played a recording on a loudspeaker in a loop. Unscrupulous school, give back my wife, give back my son. This incident made a big stir. The police station and the education bureau intervened. Eventually, the school compensated my brother 500,000 yuan to settle the matter. The relatives all advised my brother to marry another wife and have a child. My brother took the advice. Just 1 week after Li Meili was buried, he brought a woman home. The woman's belly was cooperative. She got pregnant a month later. When Li Meili's family heard the news, they came to make a scene. My brother took out 50,000 yuan. Li Meili's family took the money and left satisfied. When someone said they should go see the grandson lying in the hospital, my brother made an excuse that he needed to take care of the pregnant woman and didn't go to the hospital to see Xiaowei again. Only my father, out of compassion, went to see him occasionally. When I went to the hospital to see him, he was really pitiful. He was emaciated and covered in gauze all over his body. When he saw me coming, a glimmer of light burst out in his dull eyes. He desperately raised his hand to grab the corner of my clothes. "Aunt, save me. You're the best to me." With a loud bang, I was buried in the sea of fire. I was a bit puzzled. Then in a flash I thought of something. "You remember everything?" I asked, feigning calm. He looked embarrassed and said in a low voice, I remember everything. Aunt, I'm sorry. It's all my mom's fault. She said you ruined my future. Then in this life, with your mom taking care of you full time, do you have a bright future? He lowered his head and remained silent. I decided to add fuel to the fire. Dad has married you a stepmother. Your stepmother is pregnant now. She's so afraid of you that she's made your dad sell the house. They've bought a new house somewhere else and moved away. Even your grandpa has gone with them. He looked up crying. The last glimmer of light in his eyes gradually dimmed. Even if he was stupid, he could understand that he had been abandoned. Aunt, forgive me. I was young and ignorant then. He cried bitterly. I couldn't help but sneer. You were young. You were 20 years old then. You know best how I treated you since you were a child. Just because of your mom's few words. You hated me so much that you wanted to kill me. After all, you're an ungrateful wretch. In the previous life and in this life too, learning requires talent. In this life, your mom hired so many one-on-one teachers for you. But your grades were still at the bottom. You're simply not cut out for studying. With every word I said, Xiaowei's face turned a shade paler. Forgiving you is something I can't do because I'm a vengeful person. With these words, I left the ward. That night, Xiaowei jumped off the rooftop of the hospital. In this life, not only was there no hope for a bachelor's degree, but he didn't even have the chance to go to a technical school. In this life, without the draining of the original family, after getting married to my husband, I gave birth to 2 lovely babies. Regarding the education of the children, my husband and I both adhere to individualized teaching and happy education. We didn't sign the children up for study cram schools. As long as they finish the homework assigned by the teacher, it's okay. But the grades of the 2 children have always been among the top. Every time I go to the parents' meeting and share my experience on stage, as the parent of an outstanding student, I always say, first of all, the child should have a good learning attitude and method. Secondly, parents should recognize and accept the child's shortcomings. Don't blindly compare or have overly high expectations, otherwise, it will cast a shadow of anxiety over the child from a young age. The end.